this is kind of the way you would standardly kind of lay back on a bench. And you'll notice, again, shoulders are a little bit rounded. You've got that little dip here where you might find a little bit of discomfort. And again, when you're coming down, you're gonna go straight into the shoulders, not accessing all the power in your chest, not accessing all the power in your back. And again, you're gonna be straining the shoulders after a while. So what you want to do here is when you're in this position, you always want to set yourself up in a good position with your arms up. And it's going to make it easier because this way you're in a position where you can actually pull your shoulders back rather than at the bottom when it's a lot harder to find that proper position. So anytime if you find that you lose position or you're not feeling like it's comfortable, always start at the top and then readjust yourself into this spot. That's going to make it a lot easier for you. So when it comes to this, what you're focusing on doing is thinking about driving your shoulders down and pulling them back and pressing them into the bench here. So you're starting shoulders flat, you're gonna pull your shoulders down and squeeze back. And you'll notice naturally there's a little bit of nudge. So I'm not cranking into my lower back here because you'll notice this is a little bit different. What I'm trying to do is squeeze my shoulder blades together and down to create that stable flat base. Because our shoulder blade is basically a flat piece with a joint. So you're trying to create that flat shoulder blade against the bench so it pins the shoulder blades back, but it also allows you to actually use your chest. So what you're gonna do when you set up is you wanna make sure, first of all, before you even start, you're gonna practice this a couple times to make sure you know what that feels like. If you're doing it well, especially because you're not used to it, it might feel like your back is cramping. So you might notice that even at a super light weight, the chest isn't what's tired, it's gonna be your back. And as time goes on, especially when you're doing as many reps as possible, you'll notice that this is what's gonna fail before your bench. So you're gonna notice that over time, as you get tired, instead of pressing up with your shoulders back, you're gonna start punching forward. And that's what we wanna make sure when we do this, we take the time at the top to squeeze back again before you come back down. And that's gonna make sure that you're not at risk of injury as you get tired at rep 15, 16, 17 when you're really getting tired of your testing. So what you're gonna do here is after you practice a couple times before you set up, you're gonna start by grabbing onto the bar. So obviously you know this is a fairly long bar, so you want to be grabbing it as evenly as possible on both sides. So the grip doesn't really matter too much. Just know that the wider you go, the more chest you're using, the closer you go, the more triceps you're using. So try to find a balance between the two, and if you know your arms are naturally a little bit weaker, you might want to grab a little bit of a wider grip, and if you know naturally your chest is usually what failed and your triceps can do a lot, a little bit closer is fine. You might have to play around with it a couple times before you find the perfect grip. So always when you're starting, you're going to start actually fairly low on the bar, and that allows you to actually slide into position later on. So you'll notice here, my head is nowhere near the bar so far. So I'm going to slide up just far enough for me to actually have to be able to grab on. I'm going to make sure that I'm grabbing on evenly, and you're going to look at the knurling and really double check that you're even on both sides before you even grab on. So for me, I'm just going to have 2 finger widths away from the beginning of that knurling on both sides, and I'm going to grab on. So I'm going to start by looking up at the bar, grabbing evenly on both sides, and this is where I create that squeeze. So I'm going to squeeze my shoulders down, squeeze my shoulders back, and you'll notice I have that little pop in my chest. And now I'm going to use my feet by pressing with my heels and sliding myself up slightly, again, to help myself keep that shoulder in a good position until my eyes are looking straight up ahead to the bar. So now we start a little bit low so we can slide up a little bit, and this is where we stop. So from here, this is where you're going to push up and over. So the downside to this bar is it is fairly high. So for women with a little bit of shorter grip, my grip is naturally here. You can clearly tell there's no way I'm unrocking this. So for you guys, it'll be either gripping a little bit closer than you normally do, or asking your partner to help you lift off and then just adjusting your grip again, but still holding on to the squeeze when your partner pulls off. So if you have a slightly lower bar, what you're going to do here is you're going to think about, in that squeeze position, you're just going to be far enough that you can extend your arms and then come over. You want to make it as easy as possible. If you go a little bit too aggressively, what you're going to do is you're going to punch forward and you're going to lose that really good shoulder position. So you want to make sure that you're close enough, you're in that good position, so that when I unwrap, I'm still in that spot. My body hasn't moved at all. To make sure that you be able to do as many reps as you can, you really want to be in a position where you're doing as little movement as humanly possible as soon as you pick this up. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot more exhausting. You're going to waste a lot of potential reps just because you've punched forward and then have to shift yourself in position. And once you got weight on the bar, doing something like this is not ideal, especially for shoulders. So you're going to pull, unwrap, nice and straight, not moving. And then from here, you're always going to have pressure in your heels to help you push with your whole body. You're lower to your chest, still squeezing the shoulders back. Notice how my shoulders are not popping forward, my chest is still up. And then touching the bar lightly and squeezing straight. So your goal here is to squeeze back and into the bench, back and forth, as much as possible the whole way, so that if you notice here, it's just my arms that are really moving. And then when you're done, you want to make sure you're fully stretched out before you try not to think about kind of throwing it back as you push up, because again, if you put too much weight on the shoulders, you can easily hurt yourself, okay? That's the basics of the barbell bench press. Everything, little variations are just going to be more things that you kind of pick up and feel most comfortable doing. The only difference between this and the dumbbells is when you hold on to your dumbbells and you get back, you obviously don't have to worry about where you are in relation to the bench, and you'll be coming back, and again, starting at the top before you squeeze your shoulders down and back, and then sliding yourself up, and then doing the same thing with the dumbbells. The only difference with the dumbbells here is because the bar is already in a set spot, it's naturally going to come down in a perfect position. With this one here, you want to make sure that you're not going too far out with the dumbbell. You always want to stay below your shoulder, kind of thinking about aiming for your armpit. And that's just going to make sure that it doesn't accidentally punch shoulders and you don't kind of impinge at the top here. Other than that, it's basically the same thing. Does that make sense? Does anyone have questions?